Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello, everybody. Do you know who we have today? It's Kelly's day. Kelly Lorencz. Got him today. So, you excited for some questions? I'm going to ask my chat to do something today. Ask a bunch of questions of Kelly. Ask a bunch of them. He is here to answer them. He's here to talk to Alberta. He really wants to hear from you. So, let's ask a bunch of questions of Kelly today. Let's get him so comfortable with this kind of show that he comes back. Because that would be a good thing. We would like guests to come back, see how they're doing, do some updates. I don't want to give you too much about what has going on because he's going to tell us all about it. But I'm very excited to have him here today. And you know, we're one step away from Maxime now. So Maxime followed me on Twitter yesterday, answered a question about being on the show, and retweeted. So we've now got Maxime's attention. And I'm not a fanboy, but I certainly do want to talk to him. I want to learn from him. I want to understand where he's going. I want to see how his party has to offer to Canada. I want to hear the truth, right? You can't get that from the media. So absolutely. Oh, I saw you. I saw you. You know who you are. I saw you. Well, let's get to the chat because I just saw something pop up there. First, good morning, Motown. My pen pal, my buddy, my friend. I've been thinking about you a lot, actually. Thinking about coming to meet you, meet the family, spend some time, navigate politics and all that kind of stuff. I'm really looking forward to meeting you, Motown. Pretty excited. Pretty excited. Motown, do you know when the by-election is in Calgary? I'm going to ask Kelly, but do you know when it is? Good morning, Patch. Long time no see. You're just hanging out with you. So really, really good to have you in the chat, and thank you very much. I'm also going to ask my chat to help with something. If you see something in here that should be a clip, just put it in the chat. Say, hey, clip that, clip this, clip that one. Because Paula is going to be keeping track of things that we should clip as part of our new process to do clipping and get them out there in highlights of the video. So if you see a spot where you're like, Jay, you guys should clip that, please just put it in the chat. We'll happy to take the note. Because as a member of the video, it's difficult for me to keep track of anything other than the conversation with the guest, because I do want to give them the full attention of have that. So if you guys want to help and just say, hey, clip that, or, ooh, that was a good one, or, ooh, we want to see that one again, please just put it in the chat and Paula will keep track. And Motown, move the hat. Move the hat. Oh, love. I think that means love the hat. See, that's what happens when you miss a letter. So is it love or move? Well, I think it's love. I think it's love. I do want to, I was a candidate. I was the candidate waiting for Yellowhead. I don't dislike the party. There's only a couple things about the party that was incompatible with me. And we might find out today whether or not those are still issues. Who knows? Who knows? But I'm really excited about speaking to Kelly. I can see that the attention on Twitter was very high for this one. So I'm very excited. I'm excited. And I feel, in a very good mood. The sun is shining. And my dogs were just there. So I know some of you want to see my dogs, and they were just there. So maybe they'll come back. Or maybe Padge will bring them by to play in the background. I'll let you see them. But nice to see you guys. And then Padge, audio and visual good. Great. Thank you. All right. A little drum roll. Hey, Stunt. I really missed you, man. I really missed you. We used to see you a lot back in the POEC days. That came to an end, and now we're back at it again, and it's wonderful to see you in the chat. I'm really excited that you're going to have a show. You were talking about having your own show. I'm so excited about that. Keep us up to date. Let us know what's going on. And thanks for being here, Stunt. Really, really good to see you, bud. And Motown, love the hat, and everything looks and sounds great. Yeah, until we start mentioning more names, and maybe they start hurting the connection. But I'm working hard for you guys to try and get this to be a clear stream, one that you can listen to, play with the mics, learn all this stuff. So I'm really glad it's starting to work out. And Azario, good morning, buddy. Thank you very much for showing up, and happy to be doing the show for you all today. Now, let me just share the results of that poll I asked everybody yesterday. It's still active, but I think it's pretty decisive. I think it's pretty decisive. So let's talk about that. So yesterday I asked everybody, when do you want the show? Early morning, which is right now, 6 a.m. Morning, 10 a.m. So like 4 hours later. Afternoon, 2 p.m. Or evening, 6 p.m. Well, overwhelming. More than half of the people decided that evening is best. And I don't blame them. That's true. It's true. Because when I did the election coverage, I got 20 times the viewers. Okay. I went from like 30 to 600. So evening is where it's at. This is about getting the message out. This is about reaching as many people as possible. This is about accommodating as many people as possible. So we're still working out the logistics, but what it looks like we may do is evening show, but not 6 p.m. It'll be 4 p.m. It will end at 6. Because, well, for starters, Tim Pool starts at 6. I really, my Ontario friends, most of my friends, definitely tune into him. So I don't need to be competing with Tim Pool. And that also allows me to be ready for dinner, right? So if I do from 4 to 6 p.m., then I can go see the family after the show. So that will work. That gives it from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. So you're evening enough, I think. And then what we'll do is replay that show in the morning. So I'm still going to have a good morning with you, because that's one of my favorite things to do. But what we'll do is we'll have a bit of a chat. We'll say hello. We'll talk a bit about the episode, and then I'll play the episode for you. So if you're a morning bird just like me, don't worry about tuning in the night before. I'll still replay it for you. And it will be a clean version where all the technical hiccups are removed. So if you're a morning bird, you're going to get the previous show cleaned up, and you'll get me live, and we'll chat about it. And then we'll release a bunch of clips and highlights throughout the afternoon. What do you think? You think that kind of system will work for you? I'm excited about getting more content to you and getting clips and highlights to you. It's important. I just haven't had a system and a process where I can find the time to get all that done. And stunt, let me just go here. I'm busier than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Oh yeah, you gotta keep moving. I've been building a monster truck, streaming mobile, and will be on the road soon. Awesome, awesome, and do a show from the monster truck. And I don't know if you need one, stunt, but I do have a Starlink Gen 1. If you live in the cities, they cost $800 to get one now, but I'll certainly give you a much better price because I just replaced with a Gen 2 if you're interested. You can throw that on a truck. You can stream from anywhere with that thing. So it'd be kind of neat. We got a vote here from GovCorrupt. I vote evening 2. Missed the poll. The poll's still up, but yeah, it's pretty clear. People want the evening. So I have a bunch of people booked next week already in the morning. Okay, so I'm going to finish up next week with the same kind of setup we have now. But, sorry, I just got to get that light. It's starting to come in. The sun is coming. But then the week 5, the week after that, it's going to be all evening. The whole show is going to be evening, and then we'll have replays in the morning. I would vote evening 2. Yeah, I'm in the garage all day and can only listen. So that will work great for you, Stunt. So you could put on the previous show in the garage to let people hear it, but you could watch the live show in the evenings. So that might work out wonderful. I'm pretty excited about that. Thanks for the feedback, Stunt. And then if you go into your YouTube analytics, it will tell you when the majority of your viewers are online and using YouTube. My channel shows that Ontario viewers are most active between 9 and 10 p.m. Yeah, and that's what I saw. Like when I did a evening show for the election coverage, we were getting lots of viewers. We're getting close to POEC numbers, which was great for not having to draw up the POEC. It was just, we're talking about the election. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Stunt. And that's kind of where I started cluing in was the numbers. I was looking at the numbers, and they're better in the evening for sure. Also, I'm not sure if you noticed that, but the numbers on Rumble are really good, like really good. We're getting several hundred views an episode on Rumble, whereas YouTube we're getting a fraction of that. I hope they're all real on Rumble, but we certainly don't get the same ratio for likes or comments. Very low likes and very low comments. Not to dislikes, just the activity on likes are very low compared to YouTube. So I don't know who's skewing their numbers. Is YouTube skewing their numbers down? Is Rumble skewing their numbers up? Is both of that happening? And that's why I have such a disparity between views, likes, and comments on the two platforms. But in either case, I'm happy to have the views, happy to have you around. So we'll go ahead and make that change to the show. We'll start doing an evening show and replay it in the morning. But thank you, everybody, for the votes. And it's still open. So if you go to my Twitter, you want to have your say, maybe you really like me in the morning, and 40 of you also like me in the morning, and all of you will vote, and then that bar will move. But for now, I think if I could do a live in the evening, replay in the morning, I think I cover as many bases as I can for the audience. I'm an early bird, so I would really enjoy the morning show, but I also understand not everybody needs to get up early. Not everybody needs to focus on a show. You got to get your kids ready. You got to get to work. You got to drive. So I get it. So we'll make those kind of changes. So let me just go ahead and get the screen ready now for Kelly. And there it is. Because as you know, the news media for, somebody just popped in. The news media for the PPC is not fair. So that's certainly something that we're going to go into. And the news gods just opened it up for me this morning because they just released an article on Maxime, and I'm going to pull it up for you guys. It's pretty, I'm kind of trying to find the right word, scary at how coordinated the media is. So I'm sure we'll get into that. All right. Well, he's a little bit early. So you know what we do with early guests. We see if their microphone and video works. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. There we go. We got some good audio. I'm just going to tweak you down just a smidgen here. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. We have a happy group this morning. The chat's filling up, and we're going to be getting a bunch of questions for you. So
That's good.
So you're an early bird too. You didn't have a problem with the schedule. You were fine with the times.
No, I'm usually up pretty early, 5:30 and around there. So lots to get done during the day. Try to keep it going.
Absolutely,
So,
I understand. I subscribe to that too. Early bird gets the worm, right?
that's right.
But so thank you very much for joining us today. Nice bright and early. So where are you sitting right now? Where are you sitting? Are you in Calgary? Where are you?
No, right now I'm sitting in Red Deer. I'm just getting everything ready, as we'll probably discuss, to head down to Calgary and hit the by-election down in Calgary. I'll be living down there for a few months, and like I say, we're just going to get prepared for this by-election.
That's exciting. I'm so excited for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll start the show. So good morning,
Excellent.
Kelly. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and let everybody know about who you are before your activities with the PPC, and then we can get into what brought you to the PPC, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. So a little bit about myself. I'm a veteran. I was with the Canadian Airborne Regiment and the PPCLI here in Alberta. When I got out of the military, I ended up joining federal corrections, where I spent 13 years working from minimum security up to maximum security, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was a great experience. It taught me an awful lot about gangs and crime, and especially mental health and addiction, which, you know, considering everything that's going on these days, is very, very important. Um, I've got a family. I've got my own kids. I've got two grandchildren, and right now it's just I'm like everybody else. I'm trying to get our country back to where it used to be, and we're going to put up a good fight with Maxime and everything. But my life, what is pretty. I do this probably 7 days a week, probably about
Mm-hmm.
50, 60 hours a week right now. So it's too important.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah,
So
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 I
somebody
mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so some of your skill sets are pretty impressive. For example, you're a crisis negotiator. So how
That's
would
right.
you be able to take something like that, which is not everybody has experience in that, and then take that into your candidacy and becoming a leader? How does that translate into becoming a leader?
Well, one of the biggest things that I've learned, especially in crisis negotiation, is the fact that you need to listen. Not only just listen, but actually hear what's being told to you. It's about taking that adverse response to you, or that negative response to you, and being able to take it in such a way that you're still able to communicate and hear what that person is trying to say, even though you don't agree. You may not
Mhm.
agree, and that's what's great about it. So this will allow me to talk to constituents, but not just constituents, everybody that I come across, and listen to them, and bring their concerns to Ottawa. Bring those concerns to Maxime. I've done it on a number of occasions, and Maxime does listen, and
Mhm.
he listens himself to everybody. So uh, the skills that I'm able to bring, for me, anyways, is just that I'm not a career politician, right?
Right.
I'm the average, almost like an average Joe kind of idea, and I'm there for the people, speaking for the people. I don't sugarcoat a whole lot. You're going to know exactly what's on my mind, and I think for me, if I was to end up in Ottawa, that would be the exact. I wouldn't change. That would be the exact same thing. And I, quite honestly, I think the people in Ottawa need to start hearing what's exactly on Canadians' minds.
Absolutely. And on this show, we're a big proponent of checking out the candidate, seeing what they're about, where do they stand, and not so much the party. The party has its role, but on this channel, we really focus on looking at the candidate, the skill set,
Hmm.
what their experiences are, what can they bring to the table. Because when you're doing that, you actually get somebody that can represent you. You actually understand who that person is. You have confidence in them, and you're not taking the party's clout and then just only voting on that. You're actually looking at the candidate. And I believe the PPC is kind of positioned where they have to do that. They don't have enough of the party to support that. The candidate really has to stand up and shine. And that's where people like
Yeah.
you have really taken the lead on that one, Maxime as well. So what I'm going to ask you next is, when you're using this experience from the past, because we have to draw on ourselves, not a political experience. You didn't become a pol science or anything like that. Your master's in political science. So when you're drawing from your experience, and you communicate to the constituents that they trust you based on your experience, that's not politically related. How do you pass that message on to constituents?
You know what? For far too long, we've been giving constituents a message that we want them to hear, and I'm a firm believer that, I've got to earn that trust. It can't be just me telling people what I believe I can do for
Hmm.
them. I have to earn that. I have to be in the community. I have to be accessible. I have to be open to criticism. I have to be open to having that dialogue with literally everybody in the constituency, and beyond, because that's what this party is about. The individual freedom, personal responsibility, and it far too often I hear that I don't even know who my member of parliament is. You could even go as far down as provincially and go, I don't even know who my MLA is, and for me, that's the wrong way about doing business, especially this business. We have to be accessible. Um, and one of the things that I love about the PPC is the fact that, yes, we have a party platform, but we won't have a party whip as such. We won't have somebody saying you got to toe the party line. I know Maxime believes in that. As long as we follow our four core values of individual freedom, personal responsibility, fairness, and respect, we can literally talk to our constituents and vote on various items that our constituent how they want us to vote. For example, abortion,
Hmm.
or other areas, and really bring those concerns to Ottawa. I think that this is a huge opportunity for Canadians, especially in Portage Liscar or Calgary or in Oxford and Ontario, to say, you know what, it's time to have real a real voice in Ottawa so we can be heard.
That's a very uplifting message right there. And I'm certainly going to be getting to the party platform and the whip in a bit here. Um, Now, when it comes to House of Commons, it's made up of commons. But not anymore. Right now, it's a house of professional politicians. So it sounds to me like
That's
you're
right.
really taking this House of Commons and the Commons title to heart, because that's really what we should be sending to the House. Are people made up of the community, who are connected with the community, who are reachable. You can actually reach out to them and say hi and bring some grievances to them, and really represent the common mentality of society instead of the professional politicians. So it sounds like that's exactly the angle that you're taking up, because it's, well, for you it's not an angle. For you it's just who you are, because you haven't been
That's right.
polished into a politician or anything like that. And this might be something that people have to kind of get used to, is what does a candidate who represents the common folks sound like versus a candidate who has gone through the process and understands how to speak and how to stick to the talking points. So I think this is something that we need to expose people to, the juxtaposition between the two types of candidates: the one who truly represents the common folk and they can talk about things like abortion and other issues that are important, versus the party platform toting politician who only speaks about the national strategies and the national platform. So I think it's pretty nice to hear. Uh, Now, with all that said, you will also sound less polished. You'll sound less prepared. Because you're more from your heart in your head versus a teleprompter. So how do you deal with that? Is that a problem for you? Do you find that people are coming up to you saying, "Hey, Kelly, uh, why aren't you a little bit more flashy? Why aren't you a little bit more politician-y?" Or are they just approaching you and saying, "Hey, look, I really like this type of politician where you're more from the commons. You're truly from the commons." Have you had anybody come up to you and mention, let's work on the speeches and let's get you to be really excitable in front of a crowd? Or are you finding that more people are saying, "Hey, we like you the way you are. Let's see where you stand on certain policies and positions"?
You know what? I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's refreshing to see somebody that's not the polished politician. I am who I am. I've spent most of my life in the public service, be it the military or federal corrections, and I think it's refreshing that uh, people like myself or anybody else that decides to run that isn't a career politician isn't going to sugarcoat. I'm going to tell you exactly what's on my mind, and I believe that's what most Canadians want. They want somebody who's going to stand up. They're going to speak their mind, and there's a time and place for that being polished. I mean, I do have my own speeches that I give in public,
Mhm.
and you know what? Even then, I still have fun with it. Um, and I think that's the whole purpose of this. If when you're wanting to represent the people, you got to be with the
Mhm.
people and have fun with what you're doing, and but also take it seriously and look at it as a job. I look to Maxime, and I work with Maxime quite a bit, and and when if you ever have the opportunity to see Maxime and myself together speaking at an event, we have a great time. And it, you know what, and you get a mixture of that polished and that not so polished, that very blunt, in your face. This is, I'm here to represent you kind of pushback,
Mhm.
and I think that's what people need.
And I agree, because it's refreshing. It really is refreshing, because when you're listening to someone speak like that, you can relate far closer to them. And they're not talking, yeah,
Exactly.
they're not talking down to the people. They're talking with the people and like the same level, which I enjoy. So when you do your meets and greets, are you taking questions from the crowd, or are you being more like Notley, where you select only who you want to listen from?
Well, you know what? When I do my presentations in front of everybody, I usually do probably about a 10 or 15 minute, this is what I want you to hear kind of idea. This is who our party is and what we're about. I prefer to take questions. I prefer to take, because I would rather the people know uh, what they want to hear rather than me telling them what I want them to hear. And far too often, when you get in front of politicians, provincially like Notley or whomever, they're telling you what they want you to hear.
Hmm.
And I've been to a number of events throughout Alberta, actually throughout Canada, where I've sat there and I've left going, but they didn't answer this or they didn't answer that. And now you have this opportunity to ask the question, get the answer that you want. And I always stick around after the event. So sometimes you'll get people in the crowd that don't want to ask that question in front of a group of
Hmm.
people. Come up and say hi and ask the question. You know what? Like Maxime says, there's no topic that's off limits. We will talk about everything.
Absolutely, and you do. And as we'll see later, the media loves to hang on a lot of the words you guys use. So we'll get into that in a bit. Um,
Hmm.
Why did you decide to run? Was there something that happened? And was the PPC your first choice? Did you say, like for me, when Trudeau was on the TV during the Freedom Convoy on February 22nd, en français, he told everybody that he's going to go ahead and do this emergency act. And if we didn't like it, we couldn't become a candidate and run against him in the next election. So for me, that was a call to action for many people, including myself. Did you have a moment where you said, you know what, I'm going to throw away my private life and I'm going to go public and expose myself because that sounds like a lot of fun? Did that, did something happen in your life where you said, I'm done being my private self and I'm now going to be a public guy? Did something happen and what made that decision easy for you to make?
You know what? For my entire life, I was never a public person.
I know.
I enjoyed my privacy. I enjoyed my time. Honestly, my plan was to sit back and retire and do what I wanted to do or do what I needed to do to enjoy that. But then, uh, you know, I started having grandchildren and I started listening to Canadians and what they were saying. And my whole life, voted conservative.
Hmm.
I followed the Conservative Party of Canada. I followed Maxime from the time that he was with the party and everything that he went through with the Conservative Party of Canada. And when Maxime ran for the leadership and the things that played out, and Max started the People's Party, I knew right then and there that you know, I needed to be a part or at least do something more. Um, like everybody else, or probably like most people, I'm doing this for my kids and for my grandchildren and for everybody else's grandchildren, because this is not the country that I stood up to fight for or defend. This is not the country that I spent most of my life in the public service
Hmm.
for, and I want that future for my grandchildren and for future generations. So that's why I started doing that. Now, it's quite the jump to go from being I was a type of person that didn't even like to have my picture
Hmm.
taken to now I'm in front of everybody and people having pictures taken with you and that. But you know what? I love the interaction with the people when we get out and we're doing events. Um, I love talking with everybody. I love hearing what their concerns are, and I think that's part of the crisis negotiator in me is I love listening to what people have to say. I've gone door knocking. Obviously, my team and I have hit on hundreds of thousands of doors, and I still have people from 2019 who will reach out to me because I was talking to them at their door
Right.
or they were passing on stories and now they're updating me on what's happened in their lives that's been a positive impact with what I've been trying to do or the PPC has tried to do.
That's a wonderful thing when that happens, when people reach back out, let you know what they're doing. Not only did they remember you, but they remember how to contact you and they want to contact you and then they follow through with contacting you. That's a really, really cool
Yeah.
feeling. So you were kind of getting political or thinking political before the party. And then when the party was announced, you thought, hey, that's a good idea.
Well,
Like which happened first, the
I
chicken or the egg? Which happened first?
good question. It's really hard. I remember reaching out to the People's Party shortly after um, uh, Maxime announced the party. I reached out to the local EDA here, and I remember talking with a lady there, and I said, I'm interested in becoming a candidate. Where can I get more information? And they invited me to an event at a town
Mhm.
hall, where I literally I went, and then they, unbeknownst to me, they announced me to come up and speak. And really, that's where it all started from there. I wasn't expecting to stand up and speak,
Mhm.
so I got up and I did that. And um, but for me, it is just about the fact. It's the transparency. It's the ability to be able to pull up, if you went to the People's Party of Canada website, to pull up their platform and actually see what they're running on consistently.
Mhm.
And that's something that I've never seen with any other political party. Like, if you go and look at their websites, it's not there. So that was one of the other draws for me. And the fact that, honestly, Maxime is refreshing for me.
Mhm.
He speaks his mind very much like I do. He doesn't sugarcoat a whole lot, and he's willing to step out on a limb for Canadians. And honestly, especially from a military background, I have to respect that.
So I'm sure it was CBC's review of the PPC that made you say, "Hey, you know what? That sounds like a good party. They really support it. They really are helping that the message get out." Right? CBC was one of the gateways
Well,
for you.
absolutely. I mean, I've never been one of those people that, let's go with the flow. Let's fight everything uphill, right?
Hmm.
And so that's the CBC. Uh, you know what? There's something seriously wrong with our mainstream media in Canada. That goes without saying. I think everybody is quite aware of how jaded or actually bought off they are. And
I think it's more than
um,
that. I think it's cabal. There's a consortium, and let me just show you what I discovered this morning. So, getting some research ready, I was looking at the news. Of course, I always go through the news, and I couldn't help but notice that the news was talking about Pierre is heading over to Manitoba to head off
yeah.
Maxime. But what I found interesting was, let me show you. So this is just a new article. So, oh, look at this, CTV. Pierre tries to head off. Okay. National Post. Pierre tries to head off. Oh, whoa. Star. Pierre tries to. They have the exact same article. Twitter.
Hmm.
Globe and Mail. Bay Today. Barry Today. You cannot tell me there isn't a script. You can't tell me that somebody didn't push send to all and push the button and this article went to every single media outlet there is. Carbon
Hmm.
copy, verbatim, exactly the same. So we're not getting media, are we? That's not media, is it?
You know what? That's not media. That's that's controlled advertising for whomever needs it. And if you want my honest opinion, well, you're going to
I
get
do.
it regardless. You're going to get it regardless. So they're scared. They're scared of
Yes.
Maxime, and they should be scared. The people are tired, and Maxime is the only one listening to what they have to say. And so the easiest way to get to the masses is obviously through this controlled mainstream media. They control the narrative, but as Maxime says, even negative press is still good press, because now we're getting out into that mainstream media more and more. Maxime's name is out there more and more through CBC, the National Post,
Mhm.
regardless if it's through Pierre Poilievre or Justin Trudeau or whomever, because now people are sitting there, they're going to literally look at these news articles and go, well, who is the PPC? Because a lot of people
Right.
still don't know who we are. And you know what? This is great. They want to slam us. That's perfectly fine. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. Even for myself, yesterday I had a couple news media outlets reach out to me once they found out that I was running in Calgary Nose Hill, or not
Hmm.
Calgary Nose Hill, Calgary Heritage. So, um, you know, um, so it's that, it's a threat. The bottom line is it's a threat, and what's happening for Pierre is he's realizing that he's taken the West for granted. He's taken the vote in the West for granted, and Maxime is here actually listening, and we're going to put up, a good fight. We're going to put
Yeah,
up a good fight in Portage Lisgar, and we're going to put up a good fight in Calgary Heritage in the West, and we're going to represent the people.
absolutely. And it reminds me of like high school and cliques. So this new person shows up to the high school, becomes popular, gets some friends, and then the other group that was established before starts to false rumors and try to destroy them. We never grew up, did we? We just
Mhm.
removed the high school from the title and we just called it politics. Because
Yeah.
either he changed his first name from Maxime to far right unvaccinated extremist, or his name is still Maxime, because every article you read, it precedes with that. He's far right and unvaxxed. First, who elected who to be able to label? So this whole far right thing. And why is unvaxxed still a slur? I don't get it, because we know so much more now.
Well, what confuses me, and I was thinking about this because I'm doing a video for my website, and when I was looking up some of the information on the party from a national perspective, it said that we were far right or extreme right, and
Hmm.
I'm sitting there thinking about that to myself. I'm going, there's nothing about I know for myself that's extreme right or far right anything. All I want to do is have an open and honest discussion about topics that people are uncomfortable with.
Hmm.
And if that's far right, then okay. But Maxime is the same way. Everything that is about the People's Party is about let's just have the discussion, let's have the debate. The topics might be uncomfortable. Abortion is uncomfortable for a lot of people, but Maxime is pushing the envelope there to say, you know what, we need to at least have this discussion.
Hmm.
So that's not far right. That's common sense. That's a common sense way of doing business. Let's have the discussion. Let's have the debate, and then let's vote on it. Let's let the people tell us how we want to move forward. And
Absolutely.
for me, that's what's refreshing about Maxime. Maxime has said on a number of occasions that um, he right now he's not looking to be the prime minister.
Hmm.
Realistically, as a People's Party, we're not looking to be that that governing body. We want to be the balance of power because the
And I,
balance of power is to the people,
yeah, and I think you
right?
can inject some accountability immediately, even with one seat. One seat alone, you can start making some change.
Well, yeah, one seat's it's difficult. Ideally, we'd like to get a couple out of these by-elections. So
Well, sure.
Maxime, and myself, obviously. But you're absolutely right with Maxime. There's that element of common sense that's being pushed. That envelope, the questions are being asked, and then it becomes more and more. Um, there's more and more accountability
Hmm.
because now we have a voice in Ottawa that's actually representing the people. You've talked about vaccines and how we still struggle with this: are you vaxxed or anti-vax? Or I mean, as I explained to you last week when we were talking about this show, I was in the hospital, and even there they asked me, are you vaccinated or not? Well, you're Alberta Health Services, you're looking at the computer, you would know if I am or I'm not. So why are you asking me this?
Right.
And if my concern is, how do I answer you? Do I answer you where you're going to be supportive, or do I answer you where you're going to? As far as I'm concerned, it shouldn't matter. I don't care if you're
Hmm.
vaccinated. I don't care if you're non-vaccinated. What I care about is that you have the individual freedom to make that choice for yourself. It's an informed decision, and let's get on with life. Let's get on with making Canada the most prosperous country in the world. Let's make Western Canada the most profitable region in the country.
Hmm.
Alberta is that heartbeat. So I mean, there's so many other things that we can focus on that we're being distracted with this fear of vaccinations and or non-vax or whatever, that we're losing sight of the things that we need to focus on.
Absolutely. And if you are successful in the by-election, and we're going to get into that in a bit, what would be one of the things that you would take immediately to the House? What would be one of the first things? Would you have a private member bill? Would you want to go and start an inquiry on something? Like, what would be one of the first things you would want to do?
Well, you know what? I know Maxime is brought up quite a bit that that he's going to bring forward the abortion bill, which
To
I think
reopen that
is
debate?
the reopen that debate, which I think
Yeah.
is absolutely fantastic. One of the things that I've been working on for the last, well, since the last election is, and I've been trying to follow it in various countries like Poland and a couple others, is I really believe that Canada needs an anti-corruption bureau, something that's at arm's length from the government, that holds the federal government accountable, provincial governments accountable, but not only the politicians, but the bureaucrats below them.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you know, there's some real serious consequences. You know, if you look at the Polish model, they right now they've got a few members of parliament that were found to be corrupt. They get 13 years in prison. They lose their pension. They can never work in the public service again. And
Hmm.
then right after that, two bureaucrats below were the same thing. They were found to be corrupt. They got 8 years in prison and they lost their pensions and can never work in the public service again. I really think that this is what we need, and this is done as a citizens initiative. And
Right.
you know, I think that's what we need. We've seen so much corruption. We've seen so much accountability, or people being unaccountable, I should say.
Hmm.
Trudeau, for example, you know, he seems to skate on literally everything. Well, and you know, you can pressure, but the thing is, if there's no accountability, then what's the point? And one of the things that started me on that path of wanting an anti-corruption bureau was the fact that Justin Trudeau, in his mandate letters to his ministers, the mandate letter to his minister of foreign affairs was to meet with like-minded countries and initiate or start up an international anti-corruption court. So, you know, I mean, the biggest,
That's weird.
how hypocritical is that? You have the most corrupt prime minister in Canadian history wanting to start up an international anti-corruption court.
I think he
So,
knows who's behind it then if he's actually asking for it. If he's asking for it, he actually already knows who the gavel holder will be. And it's somebody he's comfortable with. That's the only way that he brings that forward on his own mandate is because he
mhm.
already knows the answers to any questions that will be asked in that particular court. Um, that's the only reason that would happen, in my opinion. So he already
Well,
knows who would be behind that.
oh, absolutely. And well, when you have somebody who's corrupt and you're meeting with like-minded countries, so obviously they're corrupt,
Hmm.
you know, it just furthers that there's no accountability at that point to the people.
Well, we'll just
And this
send
is,
David Johnson, right? That will be our representative to this. That we already picked
well,
him out, so we'll send David Johnson.
I kind of chuckle because David Johnson's been doing a whole lot of you know, smoothing things out for Justin Trudeau. Uh, I mean, why don't we send him to the Ukraine to see if he can stop the Ukraine-Russia war? He seems to
We
be
should
very
call
effective at.
we should call him Mr. Botox because he's very good at smoothing things out for
Exactly.
the face on the superficial level. He can smooth it out, so he's Mr. Botox.
That's
Um,
right.
yeah, now the corruption court or whatever we want to call it, I think is a fabulous idea. But do you think either one of the duopoly parties want that? Do you think they actually want to bring one of those in? And when I say duopoly parties, I'm talking, of course, the Conservative Party of
Mhm.
Canada and the New Democrat Liberals of Canada, because we actually have a party where they say they're separate, but there's two parties that are together now.
Absolutely.
So do you? Yeah, because we no longer have a third option or true opposition with the NDP. They're liberal light. That's who they are now. So, do you think these two parties would want to usher in a citizen based accountability corruption department? Do you think they're going to be the first ones to bring that in? Or is it going to have to be a grassroots from the citizen push? It's got to come from the ground up in order to get it to happen.
I think we need to have a lot more grassroots push up, to be honest with you. The government is supposed to be about the grassroots. It's supposed to be about the people for the people. Um, but you know, I have to be honest with you. I don't care if they want it or not. If
Right?
whoever holds the balance of power can make this decision, and this is why Maxime is so, um, you know, stands so strongly on the point that the PPC wants to hold that balance of power in order to elicit change in the government.
Hmm.
And that that balance of power, especially with the PPC, really and truly is that grassroots power in Ottawa. It's that grassroots voice in Ottawa. And you can move mountains as long as you hold the balance of power.
Right.
Look at what's
Uh,
happening now with the unholy alliance of the NDP and the Liberals.
mm,
Same thing.
yep. Yeah. No, the most powerful person in Canada right now is Singh, and he's going to be that way for a while. Now, Preston Manning did a good job with the National Citizens Inquiry, so he kind of started in this direction. Has no
Mhm.
teeth, has no bite, can't do anything, can't bring charges. Charges could come from it if anything comes out and it gets passed to the Crown, but the inquiry itself has no teeth. So, what do you think about revisiting our Public Inquiries Act, adding subpoena power to it, adding the ability to bring charges, make it a citizen-based one, and really kind of just alter our current Public Inquiries Act, which isn't real. Okay, that's just
Yeah.
government checking themselves, but actually put some bite into it and put some teeth into it so that it can be citizen initiated, and it definitely has subpoena power. It has perjury, it has consequences if you lie, and it also has either sentencing or charges recommendation. So at the end of it, it can actually pass something to the Crown. But what do you think about that as one of the first steps to kind of get some accountability and a real inquiry out of our government?
I think we absolutely have to look at how our governments are run. NCI, I attended NCI here in Red Deer for 3 days,
Hmm.
and there was some very powerful testimony. There was some very powerful testimony right across the country, and it opened up the eyes for a lot of people. I attended because for 2 years I had heard Justin Trudeau's version of what was going on in Canada, and
Hmm.
now I'm sitting at National Citizens Inquiry and I'm hearing the opposite end or the other side of the story. And quite honestly, there should have been a lot more politicians there listening to this testimony because
Hmm.
for 2.5 years they fed us all of this other, you know, whether you want to call it misinformation or what have you. Now I'm going to get both sides of the story and I can make an informed decision. So I absolutely think that things like the NCI should have that um, teeth, as you put it, to
Yeah,
make
subpoena
recommendations.
power.
But part of the
Yeah,
problem
yeah.
is, and you said it, it has to go. Uh, it has to go to the Crown prosecutor. Well,
Well, it could go to a
again,
corruption department after. So maybe we have the
right.
inquiry that sits in and they make a recommendation to the sentencing or
Well,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's
because
exactly how it works, right? It goes to this anti-corruption bureau, right? And
yeah,
this is
yeah.
why I think this is such a good. It's so right now it's needed in Canada because there needs to be that accountability to the people, and far too often we're hearing that there's no accountability. He, all of them, they're just. I mean, I can push and push and push. I'm not going to get any answers in the House of Commons,
Hmm.
right?
Well,
So we need the public opinion.
and another challenge would be in Parliament itself. The Speaker of the House comes from the governing party. It's an elected person who gets
Hmm.
appointed to the Speaker. Why is that not a neutral position? Why is that not a federal judge? Why is that not somebody that can facilitate debate? Because the House is meant to be a debate, not
Hmm.
a controlled talking point by the Speaker. Um, That could be a quick little change. We can no longer allow a MP to become the speaker. The speaker is an assigned position from like the federal judicial branch, and their job is to mediate and facilitate debate. I would love to see genuine, true debate actually happen in the House, but we don't have that right now. What do you think about that little tweak in the parliamentary process?
You know, there's so many things in our process that we need to fix, and we have to do it one step at a time. Obviously, um, the way to actually start that is the balance of power, giving back the power back to the people of Canada,
Hmm.
and holding various parties and the government accountable. Right, that's the first step. But then we also need to start looking at, and I get asked this all the time. You know, we want balance across the country, so we want equal number of seats in each province. Each province has equal number, say, as uh, Alberta's got 37 seats, and
Okay, we might be losing his connection a little bit there.
no balance there.
You're back, Kelly. Yeah, you're back.
Okay, yeah. So
The balance of power.
yeah, the balance of power, it's that accountability. There's an imbalance in the system itself because of the fact you look at Ontario, it's at what 150 seats.
Hmm.
Their voice is going to be louder than that of the West. And so how do you get the kind of changes that you're talking about? Well, at this point right now, the only way to effectively do that, because the establishment parties aren't going to do that. You
Hmm.
know that the Liberals aren't going to do it. You know the Liberal light Conservatives, or as Maxime calls it, the vacant Conservatives, aren't going to do that because they all want the same thing. They want the power, and
Hmm.
that's the power over the people. Whereas if you have that balance of power, well, now that power belongs back to where it should be, with the people, and that's the only way to get the changes that you're talking about with electoral reform, and how things are done in the House of Commons, and the processes there. But is there a need for change? Absolutely. Absolutely, there's a need
Absolutely.
for change.
The simple fact that the Liberal Party and NDP party can openly brag about a partnership and openly say, I am going to vote this way on the budget, and openly say, I'm going to vote this way on a no confidence vote. If you
Mhm.
look at the criminal code, there's actual bribery in there, which says you're not allowed to accept or um, uh, have any considerations to hold your office. But is that not a consideration to hold office by keeping both Singh and Trudeau's office safe for the next 3 or 4 years, or 2 years now, through an agreement? Is that not a form of bribery?
It's collusion. Pure and simple. It's collusion. I want this, so let's agree, and I'll give you that. This isn't
Hmm.
about working for the people anymore. It's about what can I best get for myself, or for my party, or what have you, to benefit me. This
Hmm.
government is, and everybody, by all outward appearances, it's about what can this government do for me, rather than what can this government do for the people.
Yeah,
So
and another. Sorry, go
no, no, it's just,
ahead.
and that's where that unholy alliance comes into play. What
Yeah,
what a lot of people don't realize right now, especially in Western Canada, is Western Canada holds the balance of power right now in Ottawa, and we're getting railroaded because 19 of 25 seats that the NDP hold are in Western Canada. They
right.
hold the balance of power. So why, you know, if Western Canada really wants to take a stand, if Western Canada really wants to have that voice in Ottawa, we already know that the Conservatives, nothing's happened under the Conservatives that benefits Western Canada.
Well,
Pipelines
you know
weren't
what?
built.
If
Go
I
ahead.
was a critically thinking and rational NDP supporter, I'd be looking hard at the PPC party this round because my current party, if I was a supporter of the NDP,
Hmm.
isn't following anything that I believe in. They've gone and run with the Liberal Party and they've just locked themselves up with power for now. So if I was like a critical thinking NDP voter, I'd be taking a closer look at the PPC because the PPC is actually reflecting what traditionally used to be that party's position, which is against both parties, be a true opposition, and have more of the people's voice come up. Now, the NDP has changed. They're not that anymore. But do you
Hmm.
think that there could be a good draw from traditionally NDP supporters to the PPC party because their national federal party is no longer really uh, sustaining and upholding their values anymore?
Well, I can tell you this. A number of parties have done their own research into the PPC and where the PPC are getting their membership from.
Hmm.
The People's Party has not taken any members from the Conservative Party of Canada since 2019, but
Okay.
yet we're still growing. The people that are following us, the people that are joining us? Where are they coming from? Well, they're coming from. There's some, believe it or not, coming from the Liberals that
Hmm.
believe in what we're standing for. Uh, a lot of our membership is coming from the Green Party because of our stance. I mean, yes, we acknowledge that climate is always changing and we need to do something to protect Canada and Canadians, but not to the extreme measures. But most of our membership is coming from the NDP and the non voter,
I can
which
see
I
why
think
too.
absolutely. I mean, Maxime has been the only one, the only political leader that's actually stood up for the workers for the last 2 years in Ottawa, stood shoulder to shoulder with them. And that deserves the respect. He's not just playing lip service for everybody saying this is what we're doing, showing up for a photo op or what have you. He's actually standing out in the cold with the Canadians
Hmm.
and supporting them, actively being that loud voice for the workers. And that's what this is supposed to be about.
Now, you in the party, so you're a candidate, but you're also the lieutenant of Western Canada and Northern Territories. Did I get that right?
That's
The
right.
lieutenant of Western Canada and Northern Territories. So
Yes.
you're actually very, very, very active in the party. So you're a candidate, which is
Yeah.
wonderful, but you're also
Yeah.
part of the leadership. So go ahead and talk to me a little bit about why you decided to step up, not just as a candidate, but to get involved in the leadership. Did they recruit you? Did you put yourself forward? Was it a little bit of both? And then now that you've been there for a while, um, tell me how it's going for you. Are you finding that Western Canada is coming together under your leadership? Are you able to make some big steps compared to a couple of years ago? Tell me a bit about how your work in the PPC party is going and what you're doing with that right now.
Sure. So, what a lot of people, I get the question quite often, what is a lieutenant for the People's Party?
Right.
And historically speaking, a lieutenant was always somebody in the province of Quebec that was there to basically communicate with a prime minister or a leader of a party that didn't speak French and
Mhm.
could relate what's going on in Quebec and the issues that are going on in Quebec with the leader. Well, Maxime looked at that and thought, you know what, there's four distinct regions in Canada. You have Atlantic Canada, you have Quebec, Ontario, and Western Canada. Well, he's going to make appoint lieutenants for each of these areas,
Mhm.
and we're going to what that does is that gives me the ability to look at what's going on in Western Canada, um, because the messaging is different here than it would be elsewhere. And
Right.
I can advise Maxime on what's going on. What are the issues here? What are the talking points? What is the strategy? How do we move forward in Western Canada and make this the best possible party that's listening to the people that we can? So that's what the lieutenant does. And you're right. I've been busy. I've been traveling across my area of responsibility. I think I've traveled it 3 times already, talking to members, working with associations, looking for candidates, working with our candidates, and you know what? It's been a lot of fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I work with my colleagues in Quebec and Atlantic Canada, uh, very very closely. So we communicate, we understand what's going on, we share ideas, and that's what's going to help this party grow. We're also out there, if people have a question for a candidate or for an association, and that association doesn't have the answer,
Mhm.
they can come to me and I can get that answer for them. But what is nice is that I have a direct line to Maxime, and Maxime will be able to give me that response so we can share that with the people, so we're not waiting on answers. And this is basically a direct line to the leader of the party, which is, where else do you get that?
When did you start that position, or this position of lieutenant?
I
It was
think I've
about
been
a year
doing this,
ago.
yeah, little over a year ago, but a year and a half ago. And it was right in the middle of COVID. So an interesting story with that. I drove to Ottawa for the announcement of the lieutenants for the press conference in Ottawa,
And to be clear
which
for
was,
everybody, you drove because you were not welcome on a flight.
I wasn't allowed to fly. That's right. I was one of those
Well, I don't want
unpl-
to say not allowed because Justin said he didn't force anything. So I'm just going to say not welcomed, right?
yeah, I was one of those unclean people, that
Yeah.
wasn't allowed on a flight. So I drove to Ottawa and we did the press conference there, and I was going to stay in Ontario and tour and help fundraise for everybody in Ontario, but we were having some problems in Vancouver. So
Mhm.
they asked me to go to Vancouver and work with the teams there. So it's been awesome. The teams, I'm finding that our teams now are growing and they're becoming stronger and they're a lot more confident, and they know that anybody can reach out to me,
Mhm.
whether it's members, whether it's non-members, whether it's team members, candidates, and I will always respond. Uh, you can send me an email, and I guarantee you, I don't have some team member or some, cut and paste. Here's my response. I will respond to you, and you know what? Let's have that conversation. And for me, that's been so much fun. Have I been busy? Absolutely. I think I do. I've cut it back a little bit here right now just because I'm preparing for the by-election. But on average, I was doing about 80 to 90 hours a week on this, and it's all I'm a volunteer.
Yeah.
I don't get
Yeah.
paid for this job, so
Mm.
which is, if you don't do what you love, I wouldn't be volunteering that many hours, right?
Absolutely. You can tell there's a passion there. And anybody who gets involved with the PVC at this stage has to be passionate because, yeah, there's no
Hmm.
salary. And, there's a lot of hard work over the next couple of years and no guarantee of success. So it's definitely something that you need to be passionate about. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I was the candidate in waiting for PPC for Yellowhead before I walked away, before you became lieutenant, because it came like a couple weeks later that I saw an announcement that you became the lieutenant. So I'm sorry that we didn't connect back then because I certainly would have had a lot of questions for you. My challenge at the time, though, was around leadership and access to support within the organization. So now I'm going to ask you whether or not that changed since you've taken leadership. Do you now support potential candidates in waiting or candidates? Do you is there a conduit between the candidate and Maxime through you? These were challenges that I discovered, and it might be just a regional challenge. Like it might just be some of the people I was hanging around with out here. But now that you became the lieutenant for Western Canada and Northern Territories, have you changed that structure? And are there ways for candidates or candidates in waiting to communicate directly to you and maybe get some more answers out of HQ?
There absolutely is, and I make that part of my job. That I've taken it upon myself to work with the associations and the candidates specifically, because as we talked about earlier, a lot of our candidates aren't polished politicians.
Mhm.
They're grassroots people who are jumping in because they want to take a stand for Canada and Canadians. So I've been working with our candidates, and honestly, I don't restrict it to just Western Canada and Northern Territories. I work with all of our candidates right across the country, and I will continue to do that. And that accessibility with our candidates, with our lieutenants, all of them, um, and you're exactly right. There's that conduit where they can reach out and ask questions and
Hmm.
get answers and get the education and have an opportunity to learn about how do I become the best representative possible for the people, and which is what we want.
Yeah.
And that's what's different now. So previously, had you had the opportunity to reach out, absolutely, you could have called me, you could have sent me an email. There's a 9 times out of 10, I'll actually come up to you and meet with you wherever you are, and let's sit down, let's discuss what's going on, and let's see how we can make things better, not only for you, but how you can get that message out to the constituents. And
Well,
that's
I'm
what's
actually going to
important.
kind of do some of that with you now because I'm sure that there's potential candidates or people thinking about, approaching the
Mhm.
PPC party that are listening to this. Because I have a lot of people who are really into trying to do something, whether it's becoming a candidate or supporting a candidate. So it
Mhm.
might be a very good conversation. So one of the challenges that I was having was getting support. I'm not looking like I didn't think, and I enjoyed this, that there wasn't like an MP boot camp that you went to and then they're going to beat it into you how to do stuff and how to talk and how to do your hair. I'm glad that there wasn't that. But what I did want to see is platform support. So, you know, a website, a sub website, an email address. How do I fundraise? Do you have some material for
Mhm.
that? Merch. I don't want to order a box of shirts. I would like to just have a link to like HQ's merch sales. And then legal. Like I'm a paralegal and I'm trained, but I also found it fun to try and navigate the legalities of being a candidate, the finances of being a candidate. That's a big section of the of the federal Canada's requirements. Election Canada's requirements is what you do with your funds, and then door knocking, protesting, going door to door. What are the laws in Calgary? What are they in Edmonton? Can you do this over there? So what I would call that platform support, where the party itself is helping you on fundraising, technical, legal, and then just all around how to be a candidate. There was some of that, okay, because I went through a little bit of training about how to canvass, but at that time, all that training was for urban, not rural.
Mhm.
And and then when the question came up and they said, "Well, look, your approach is cool. I understand. Go to the bars, hang out, go to the community centers, hang out, knock on a bunch of doors. But when you're rural, the doors are kilometers apart. There
Mhm.
is no major meeting point for rural. So there was really at that time not a lot of direction around how to. And of course, we're Western Canada. It's a lot of rural. So how do you
Yeah.
tackle a rural area? And as you know, like Yellowhead is a large rural area. It's 5 hours tip to tip. So have you guys done more with that? Do you now offer a little bit more support around, say, email address, a website, fundraising, the legal, all the things that you shouldn't have to be an expert at in order to be a
Mhm.
candidate, but supports your efforts as a candidate? Have you guys done
You,
some work around
you
that in the last year?
well, unfortunately, when you started with us, we were a new party. We're still a new
It was
party.
just
We're
after an
still very
election, too, right?
right. We're still very young, but literally
Yeah.
everything that you just described is what I do now. And then on top of that, I've actually taken it a couple steps further. So now what I've done is I've created a program where I engage our membership. I engage the people out in the community that maybe support the People's Party. And
Mhm.
what I do, and I've done it once already. I'll be doing it again coming up here probably after the by-election, is I bring in members, I bring in supporters into a conference room, and I
Mhm.
say, okay, you know who we are. We're the People's Party. This is what we stand for. Now, how do I get that message out? And then I engage the membership. I engage the people because I may have ideas, but there's 15 or 20 other people that have better ideas, and they just don't belong. They're not working with our associations, or they're not working with the candidates. But how often have we said, you know what, if they would just do this, their message
Hmm.
would get out? Well, now I'm
Right.
giving people the opportunity to come and help me create that. And I think it's that openness, and I found it to be very, very effective. And people were excited at the fact that I was actually asking them how they could help with their what are their ideas. And that again falls in line with what the People's Party is supposed to be about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're you're absolutely right. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but you get all of that support. Everything that you've just described is what I currently do now.
Well, that's exciting to me because those were the 4 challenges that I had: fundraising,
Yeah.
legal, technical, and the, candidacy, requirements from Elections Canada. Because when I joined, I was literally just given a link and said, "Read." And
Hmm.
look, I went through law school. I know how to do all this stuff. It's not a problem for me. I'm more concerned about the 337 other candidates across Canada who don't have a
Yeah.
law degree, didn't have a technical background, isn't comfortable doing fundraising, and can't public speak. So, I may have those, but what about the 337 others? Is there not an
Right.
infrastructure? So it's really cool to hear that you guys have really ramped that up. I knew that at the time there was talk about it from HQ, especially around the technical side
Yeah.
of things, and they were getting things to go. They're headed in that direction. So I'm glad to hear that that's happened now. What
Well,
is your recruiting process for Ken? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
well, yeah. So one of the things that people have to understand, especially as being a candidate, in 2019 when I ran in Calgary Nose Hill,
Hmm.
we were a brand new party. It was at that point. It was like, okay, what do I do? And I was in the same boat that you were in, and it was at that time that myself and my team just decided, you know what, we're gonna bite down on the bullet here. And I think I was at that time I was the only candidate in the country that had swag, and we were going out. And my whole team had swag when we were out door knocking. My
Hmm.
team at the time, I believe in 2019 and in 2021, we hit almost 59,000 doors. So we were really engaged out in the community, and that was a learning process for me because um, you're probably a lot like me in the fact that one of the things I hated the most about campaigning was the door knocking, but it has to be done. And now I'm to a point where I love going to the door because I get to hear people's stories and they actually open up, which I think is amazing. So
Hmm.
you're right. There's a lot of learning to do. There's a lot of things that candidates need to understand when it comes to Elections Canada. And we sort of chuckle about it. And those people that know me at events know my personal feelings on this. But when you're a candidate, you have to dress like a candidate. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, and this is one of the things that we're working on. You can't
Hmm.
show up in a dirty hoodie and torn jeans, or when you're asking people that to vote for you. So,
Right.
we've had our laughs, and but we've learned, and that's all this party has done over the last, what, 4 or 5 years, is we've continued to learn, we've continued to grow, continued to develop things that will, like you said, help candidates grow and become real candidates.
That's awesome. It's good to hear that. And I think the move to put lieutenants in place and to kind of reorganize at that level at that time, I think that was a good move. So I preceded that, but I've been keeping a close eye on you guys. Um, so one debate I get into a lot with people, and you did mention it here, is whether or not PPC has a whip. Now, let's just set the record straight. Do you have a position called a whip within the PPC?
No, we don't.
Okay. Now, do you have, even though there's not a position, do you have a requirement to stick to the party platform? Do you still have that requirement?
You know what? We have a party platform, and Maxime has said on a number of occasions in public events where I've been, if you're voting us in as a PPC, it already means that you've accepted our party platform, or maybe not all of it, but most
Hmm.
of it. and you're voting us in based off of that party platform. So even for myself as a candidate, I go over the party platform all the time. I'm looking at the updates and I'm helping create a lot of the updates. And so I've already bought into the party platform. So
Mhm.
that's not difficult for me. But when it comes to issues outside of the party platform, right? That's where typically you get the party whip that says you got to toe this line, and we're not discussing this, and everybody's got to have the same talking points. Well, with Maxime, it's not that way. If it's outside of our party platform, then it comes down to an individual's vote, right?
Okay.
Where we have to follow our four core values. Again, individual freedom, personal responsibility, fairness, and respect. But what I love about that is the fact that because because it's an individual vote outside of our policy platforms, I have the ability to go back to the people in my community and go, "Hey, look, we're having this discussion on whatever, and it's not a platform policy. So, how do we as a community want to vote on this?"
Hmm.
And now the people, the community may go against my own personal beliefs. They may go fall in line with my own personal beliefs. So I quite often I face the question of, okay, well, what happens when you're in that situation and the people of the community are going against your own personal beliefs?
Hmm.
And my answer to them is, you know what? I put myself in the position to represent the people,
Correct. Hmm.
and this is what the people want me, how they want me to vote. So regardless of what my personal beliefs are, if the consensus is that we go this direction, then that's what my job is. That's why I put myself forward. And that's why we have the debate. That's why we have the discussions. And that's what representation is supposed to be about. Maybe that's
100%.
maybe that's naive in my way of thinking, but you know what? Um, representation is about the people, and we're not always going to agree.
Well, I like that answer because when I originally asked that question, when I was, getting myself prepared to start canvassing and getting out there, it was explained to me at that time that that was a no-no. You don't talk outside the platform. So is that something that's kind of changed, or was there a miscommunication when I was dealing with my representation within the party? Because it was clear to me, and it was laid out very clear that if I couldn't get behind the entire platform and stay within the platform, then I would be considered a challenge. Now, I'm going to push back on that because that's exactly how you guys hear from the writings. That's exactly how you hear about something that's new. Like what happens in Yellowhead may not be happening in Manitoba. So that's exactly how this comes up. So I'm wondering, was there a misunderstanding when I was explaining this, or has there been a change so that it is more of the message of the people coming up and making its way through all the channels all the way to leadership, and then potentially being an issue that can be debated and added to the platform. So I'm curious if that's been addressed.
Yeah, you know what? The policy platforms can always be, our candidates can always ask questions of it, or challenge some aspects of that, and that's what the lieutenants are for. So
Okay.
you would bring your question to me, and if I can't answer that, then I would take it up obviously to Maxime and the team at headquarters, and we would go through it. And sometimes I've seen sometimes where there's been change. I've also seen times when you know what, we're going this way because of this. And
Hmm.
when I get that answer and I bring it back down to the candidates and explain the position, quite often they accept that, and then they can get on board with what we're trying to say. Now, in saying that, not everybody agrees with 100% of every policy platform
No, and it'd be
that
tough.
that and it's tough. I mean, there's everybody's got their own personal beliefs, but that's okay as long as you believe in most of them. That's what we're asking for. I mean, for myself, I can only speak for myself.
Hmm.
I've read obviously all of them. I know all of them, and I support all of them. Now, is there room for debate? If you ask Maxime, there's always room for debate. That's
Good.
these are starting points, right?
Mhm.
They're starting points to start the discussion. And Maxime has said time and time again, we just want to have the debate. So what are you afraid of?
I think that's a
Like,
good way to do it.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because what I would like to be able to do is if I'm talking to a constituent, a potential voter, and they say, "Hey, look, I've taken a look at your platform, and this particular one, maybe energy, and this particular thing, maybe market access, I have a different opinion on. And for us, we have a different take on it, and we want to like have direct access, not through the federal government." Um,
Mhm.
and I'm just throwing a hypothetical out there. So you're saying now I would be able to kind of take that to you, and then we can maybe make it a debate for the national platform because I can see how the party has this problem where they need a national appeal with regional reach. So if an issue is regional and it doesn't have national appeal, especially for Ontario Quebec corridor, it's tough to get it on a national stage. PPC is a little bit better than the others on that, but I'm curious, how much room is there on the national platform for something that only affects the West and it doesn't affect the East at all? Is there room for it on the national platform now?
Well, Maxime has always said that what draws people to the People's Party of Canada is the fact that our platform is never going to change. So, the the actual meat of the party is in its policy platforms. Now, there's always room for discussion. We can always have that debate, and we can move things slightly, but the platform itself, we're going to stand to our convictions, as Maxime has always said.
Mhm.
Now, in saying that, that creates the ability to have this open discussion or this open debate, even on policy platform issues. And I've done it with our headquarters team. I've asked a number of questions on various policy platform issues, and and we've always had that open discussion, which I think is encouraging, and that will allow candidates to do the same thing. But
Mhm.
we can't be that wishy-washy party that's continually changing our policy platforms to suit the needs of, because some people disagree with it or what have you.
Well, that
We're
would be
not going to
pandering.
pander,
Yeah,
right? We're
right.
not going
Yeah,
to
it would
pander to
pander.
anybody, right?
Mm.
I've witnessed Maxime talk to people at events where they've come up, Maxime, I support everything about the PPC with the exception of this one policy platform. And if you don't change it, I'm not voting for you. And I've literally watched Maxime go, well, then don't vote for me.
Right. Yeah, I
And,
don't know if
and
there's a French word for pander because he doesn't seem to pander at all.
he doesn't. And honestly, that's what I love about him. And that's what I love about
Mhm.
his leadership is the fact that, you know what, if you're Canadian, then I'm going to support you as a Canadian. And we're going to do the best that we possibly can for all Canadians. But I'm not going to change it just because you don't like it.
Mm.
Sometimes it's a hard truth. And um, Maxime is telling Canadians what they need to hear, not what they want to hear.
Right, and sometimes that's a tough thing to do, and sometimes that's a big pivot for people's understanding. Like, and just a quick example, if I think Henry Ford made this statement, if he asked people what did they want when he was building his business, they would have said faster horses. So
Hmm.
sometimes you have to help people understand that there's innovation and there's something else here that you're not even aware of that you may like. What I'm getting at with this national platform thing is I think you guys have the opportunity to redefine what a party is in the minds of Canadians. For
Hmm.
example, you should really let people know what a whip is and that you don't have one. Because a lot of people don't even know that there's such a thing. But the Conservative Party has two, and I think even the Liberal Party has two, and they have a deputy and all this kind of stuff. Um, and also, I think the national platform, it's pretty solid. You got your stuff there. But have you considered of also having beneath it, which feeds the national platform, regional platforms? So you can actually say, here's a bit of a platform for the West, here's a bit of platform for Ontario, and these all feed into the national platform. So that at least from a candidate's perspective, it definitely looks like, and because it's true, that there is a conduit to get things brought up, whatever the issue might be. It's not pandering, but it certainly does allow messages that are not necessarily on the national radar yet to start making its way up and potentially become a national issue. So have you thought about maybe that? Like, how can you start bringing more regional to, like having like a
That
workflow or a funnel?
that's exactly what the lieutenant's role is, right? You have
Okay.
people have the ability to bring those concerns up or the regional issues up, and that's my job is to bring that regional issue to Maxime so he is aware, the party is aware, and then we can make adjustments in our messaging that will reflect those concerns or what have you. Um, that's what's nice about having the roles of the lieutenant for the different areas. And I'm very vocal with Maxime. I'm very I reach out, try to get out there daily to talk to the headquarters team and say, look, at this is what's going on. This is what I'm hearing. This is what we need to address. And um, I can tell you, it doesn't fall on deaf ears. They do hear what I'm saying, and we do um, take everything into account.
That's good news. That's good news. It sounds to me like maybe something changed weeks or so after I left the party. So I'm really thankful, Kelly, that you're giving me this information now, because it's really going to help anybody who's potentially thinking about joining your party as a candidate or a supporter. So I do appreciate that part. Um, Now, my last question about some of my concerns with the party as a candidate was the leader clause, which allowed an election to happen for the riding if Maxime decided that he wanted to challenge for that riding. Now, with Maxime going to Manitoba and potentially winning in his by-election, that would be a non-issue because he would have his riding. But right now, um, that was a concern I brought forward, and I didn't ever get an answer. Okay, so what is the desire for Max? Is it Manitoba? Because my concern was building up support in Yellowhead, making commitments to people I met that I would represent them, and then maybe potentially being replaced by Maxime. Okay, so that was a concern of mine.
Yeah.
So where are you guys at now with that kind of concern for candidates?
You know what? I had a lot of fun with that myself. When Maxime was considering locations
Yeah,
to to run, simply because Maxime is known as the Albertan from Quebec, right?
right.
And so
Yeah,
many people wanted him to come to Alberta, and of course, my riding did very, very well for the PPC. And you
same
know,
here. Yeah.
Max and I had, even though we were joking around, we had that discussion that Max, we're going to have an issue if you replace me.
Okay, so
And
you saw the same thing I did. So you have to, so you know where I'm coming from on this one.
right, but we also have that dialogue, right? I mean,
Mm,
Maxime is not. One thing Maxime is he's very aware. He's very aware of uh, where he can go, what's going on in the various ridings, and he keeps up to date with even with our candidates. So
mhm,
when it comes to, for example, the Portage Liscar riding,
yeah.
it just made sense for Maxime to run there as the leader of the party, because that's where we had the majority of our vote, the highest vote count in the country.
Mhm.
I think it was
20%, right?
22.6. Yeah,
22.6.
22.6%. So
The
it was quite
CBC
high.
shaved off 2.6 then because they said 20.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody tries to minimize what's going on, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and you can't deny the growth that the PPC has had. So it made sense for Maxime to run there, and I do know that it took a lot of discussion with his family. It took a lot of discussion with the people in the party, and this wasn't just an arbitrary. Okay, I'm running here. I don't care what your thoughts and feelings are. There was a lot taken into account, which is, in my mind, that's what a true leader does.
Right. Right. And I wish there was more of that dialogue back then because what my answer that I got was uh, it's a clause that can't be exempt. So I asked for an exemption on it.
Well, in 2019, the funny thing is, in 2019, I applied to run in the riding that I'm in Red Deer Mountain View, where I've lived for 25 years, and um, there was a candidate selected for that area. And for me, it wasn't. It was about um, the party more than it was myself, the candidate. So the party asked me if I would be willing to switch ridings. Um, I then agreed. I didn't have to, but I then agreed
Mhm.
because I believed in the messaging and what was going on. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I was in a store looking to buy a suit to get out campaigning with, and I received the phone call from headquarters going, "We have a riding for you." And I said, "Okay, great. Where?" And the first thing out of their mouth was, "How would you like to run in Calgary Nose Hill against Michelle Rempel?" And I remember my heart just dropping into my stomach, and I'm like, ugh, took a deep breath, and I'm thought about it for a second, and I don't even think it was a second. I'm like, you know what? Absolutely, let's bring it on.
Do it.
And I jumped into. For me, it's about picking the fight, right?
Mhm.
That's my background, and I would expect no different of myself where if I'm running in Calgary Nose Hill, Red Deer Mountain View, Calgary Heritage, or even if I was in Port Litzcar, let's pick a fight and let's stand up for Canadians. And that's what I've done my entire life, and that's not going to change.
That is exciting. I'm actually happy to hear that, because that was part of the challenges I was going through. Um,
Hmm.
I think we should have a conversation after this video, by the way, if you want. If you want, I'm
Absolutely.
just some dude out in Alberta. um, Now, what I want to jump to is the future plans for the party. So let's
Hmm.
just put this out there. You win in the by-election. Max wins in the by-election. You guys don't get the third one, but you get two of them. What do you do with that power? What are you guys going to do if we do get the support in Calgary and in Manitoba, and we do put in two PPC at least in this by-election? What
Yeah.
could we expect out of you as some of the first things you and Max are ready to do?
You're gonna see people that when they show up in Ottawa that are going to be very very loud, calling for accountability, and
Great.
I think that we need that, right? Um, like I just finished saying, and I know Maxime is the same way. We get elected in these by-elections, we're going to Ottawa to pick a fight, and it's not about a fight about uh, you know ideologies or anything else. It's about standing up for Canadians and accountability for Canadians. And like I said at the beginning, if you've ever seen Maxime and I speak at an event together, it's very it's electric. And I think you're going to find the exact same thing in Ottawa. I think
Hmm.
Maxime and I together in Ottawa, it brings that, um, it brings that polished politician, and it
Yeah.
brings that someone who's not very polished, but speaks their mind and doesn't sugarcoat a whole lot to Ottawa. And I think it's going to be very, very refreshing. I think Canadians need it, to be honest with you. I
Hmm.
think we need another set of eyes there. Maxime has said it on a number of occasions. We will work with the Conservative Party of Canada, but
Sure.
we will also hold them accountable,
Hmm.
right?
And you have to. You have to work with all sides, and you have to hold all sides accountable.
That's
You have
right.
to debate and argue, and sometimes agree with all sides. It will happen.
Well, and that's what I love about the Maxime and the People's Party is yes, we have our policy platforms, but all of them, like I said, are all just a starting point for discussions. And in my mind, there's no one party that has the perfect answer for everything. But
Hmm.
you have to be willing to have that discussion or that debate, and that's what Maxime brings to the table. We're willing to have that discussion, that debate. We may not be right with what we're saying, but at least let's start the discussion. And I love that about the PPC.
Now, one of the things that I did like about the PPC was Maxime was an MP at one point. He was
Hmm.
elected. He knows what it's like inside. So he absolutely has found himself, whether on purpose or not, a mentor for another generation of political candidates and parties. So one thing I didn't see, and it's likely because he's super busy and the election just finished and all this kind of stuff, but is he mentoring people like you and other members of the party now? Is he taking you and it's weird to say this, but under his wing, and really trying to mentor you how this is going to work if you get in there. This is the kind of people we're going to have to approach. Behind the scenes, you're going to hear from these people. In front of the public, you're going to hear from these people. Is he doing any mentoring with you?
You know what? Maxime is teaching us an awful lot. His schedule is very, very busy, but as lieutenants and I think as candidates, I mean, you have the ability to ask Maxime any questions that you might have. Um, and a lot of that comes down to uh, personal responsibility. If I'm really wanting to be or get to that next level, then I have to be willing to work towards that, and I have to be willing to ask the questions. Maxime is willing to answer the questions,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, and he's willing to say, you know what, I would do it this way or I would do it that way, and he's done that for me on a number of occasions, and I learn from that. For me, one of the biggest concerns that I had when I first started doing this was doing a press conference
Right.
and holding a press conference. And I had the ability in 2019 when we announced the Veterans Policy Platform to do a press conference with Maxime. And you know, every day I'm learning from Max.
Mm-hmm.
I watch his press conference. I watch it, him speak to the media, and so in some ways, yes, he's very much mentoring some of us, and in some ways, it's our responsibility to learn that ourselves.
Now, you've also got some big support out of like Brian Peckford and others. Are there any other candidates in waiting or completely selected that were an MP at some point? Do we have anybody else coming into the party that was with a different party? Other than Maxime, of course.
At this point, honestly, I don't have that answer. I do know that we completed an application process, but because of the by-election, that's been put on hold for a little bit. I don't know who's applied or hasn't applied.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, you know, th- this isn't about other MPs that want to join the party. In my opinion, what I love about this party is the fact that it's very much still a grassroots people's party.
Mm-hmm.
Of the people for the people kind of, and the more that you look towards previous MPs or what have you joining the party to get that seat, now you're moving back away from that actual people's party aspect of it, back to that polished politician.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally, it would be nice, but I don't have that answer.
No, fair enough. And I've actually kind of, specifically talking about just a couple of people like Leslie Lewis, who ran for
Mhm.
Conservative Party leadership, didn't win, but certainly has a lot of ideology that aligns quite well. Um, and then Elaine Reyes, who also left the Conservative Party to become independent. These are the type of people that I think, if they were so inclined and could align themselves, would be an asset, would be a valuable asset to the party.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just curious
Yeah, I'm not
for the
saying that
future.
Maxime hasn't reached out to them.
Oh, for sure. I've even reached out to them
Well,
for you, by the way. But
yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people have reached out to them.
Mm.
I know Maxime has reached out to a number of people and talked to them about their interest in becoming a candidate for the PPC.
Hmm.
But
Nothing to be
obviously, I'm
announced
not
yet.
gonna name. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna name names or what have you.
Mhm.
But it in my opinion, it's exciting to hear Maxime tell us about the things or who he's talking about or who's going to support us or who can potentially support us
Mhm.
down the road. And what that shows is that this party is growing
Yeah.
and it continues to grow,
Yeah.
and we're growing at record pace.
Yeah.
So
Well, you got Brian Peck for
there's
support,
very
right?
much. Well, that's a huge part of it. Brian and Maxime were part of the same litigation together, where they're taking the government to
Hmm.
court over the travel restrictions.
Yep.
Um, so that's a perfect scenario for Maxime in order to get that message out. But we're seeing around the world that the populist movement or movement of the people
Hmm.
is growing and growing and growing, and you're starting to see that in Canada now as well.
And that's wonderful. So what I like is you are attracting names like Peckford. Even Jordan Peterson is a fan, and you hear a lot of other people coming forward and saying, PPC, these are one of the parties that you should be paying attention to because they're going places.
Hmm.
And that takes me to my next chunk. You guys started in 2018, I believe it was September 2018.
Yes.
All right. So you've been around for less than 5 years, but yet the last election, 5% support, coast to coast. You're running 130 or 338 candidates, and the next one is your attempt. And I believe there's no riding where you're waiting for somebody or you haven't found somebody yet, or you're going to run 338, right?
That's the plan, is to run 338 candidates across the country. Um, that's our goal. We're working towards that very, very every day. We're working on that. So I think that's that bodes well for the party. Um, there's a number of people that we have a number of applicants that are waiting to hear back from us,
Mhm.
and all I could say to that is be patient with the by-election. We're obviously
There's a
focusing on
focus there.
that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah. So, but no, it's exciting. We're growing, and we continue to grow. And uh, like you said, Maxime, the party achieved 5% across the country. Now, Maxime is allowed to speak at the next national leaders debate.
Right. You can't be excluded
That
now.
was one of the conditions. He can't be excluded. The condition that the Elections Canada gave us, that was that we had to achieve 4%. We achieved 5. And now Maxime can be in that national leaders debate, which is huge for us,
Mhm.
because now people will start to see who the PPC are and what we stand for.
That's wonderful. And already on this video, there's a chat. So I'm going to go to a couple chat messages because there's some questions here for you that's been collected.
Sure.
So we have a gentleman out in the Ottawa area, a very good guy. He's one of these guys that was suspicious about the narrative that media had. So he grabbed his camera, went out expecting the media to be correct. And then he discovered that the media has a completely different take on what was physically and actually happening in Ottawa. Since then, he switched from listening to media to being one of the ones exposing the media and walking around with his camera showing us the truth. So he's really he's got his civil duties in the right spot, is what I'm going to say about this guy. And he says, I'm thinking of running for PPC in rural farm country around Ottawa. These are my people, and I speak farm. I also speak freedom. Now, someone like him, where should he get started? How should he go ahead and take the first, put his toe into the path on becoming a candidate? What would you tell Mr. Stunt Dummy to go do?
Well, first and foremost, you would go to the national website. We had a link on there that has the candidate application. Fill that out, go through the process, get your name in, and then again we will start the process of interviews and vetting people. And if the link isn't on there, then please reach out to me.
Okay.
Send me an email, and I will communicate with you, and I'll tell you what we're looking for, what the process is, and once the next process opens up on the national website, I can send you the link and you can get started.
And that would be
I would
Kelly at
absolutely encourage that.
peoplesparty.ca.
Kelly at peoplespartyofcanada.ca.
Okay, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. So go ahead, Stunt. Go.
That's right.
If you can't find what you're looking for there, send Kelly an email. Now, a quick question for anybody thinking about being a candidate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't have to live in that riding. So if there's a riding,
No, you don't.
yeah, so if there's a riding that you are attracted to, or maybe you believe that you can connect to the people there, you don't actually have to physically live in that riding to go ahead and run, right?
Well, perfect example. I mean, I've lived in Alberta my whole life, and in 2019 when I ran, because the riding had another PPC candidate, I was given the option of going to another riding, and I did, and I ran in Calgary Nose Hill. So you don't have to live in the riding.
Mhm.
Ideally, it's nice because the people there know you. You're in the community,
Mhm.
you understand the community. But again, this is about getting representation in all across Canada. And if there's something that you're interested in and it really motivates you, then absolutely, I would encourage you to be open-minded enough to say, okay, I'm willing to go here to run to represent the people.
Well, Stunt, did you hear that? Get that monster truck done, put a big PPC flag on it, and
Mhm.
you'll get attention. He also followed up with he's looked into being a candidate. The PPC website shows all open districts by township, but it doesn't show what province these townships are located in. So, Stunt, what I'm going to suggest to
Yeah.
you is just do a little bit of homework there. Because if you're going to run for a riding, you should know what province it's in. But go ahead and take a look at the ridings, see if there's anything near you or that calls to you, Stunt, and go ahead and reach out to Kelly. Or better yet, fill out the application first. But if you have any trouble, go ahead and reach out to Kelly. And then you can put him into contact with maybe who the riding or the lieutenant is he can be speaking to.
Yeah, what I would end up doing is once he reaches out, I'd be able to reach out to an association, direct him to an association, and then the association would be able to work with him on,
The application
if
process and
there's a
stuff.
candidate in that area. That's right. If there's a candidate, they'll be able to tell him, but at least they're being informed. And this is how if we have a good uh, channels of communication, that it should make it easy for you to find out if you can run there or not.
Awesome. And will he have to change his name? Stunt Dummy?
I would probably recommend it.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of I want to say interesting candidates throughout the
Mhm.
years, and I don't think that that's going to change. But that's what makes us interesting is that you know we've had a lot of unusual candidates, but they still want to represent the people,
Absolutely.
and
And,
you know
and that was my experience
it,
too. When I
it's
met the association here, it was full of all types of people. There wasn't
mm,
one type that the media says exists. That was definitely not the case at all. There were all types of people there, and that's really the People's
yeah.
Party when you really think about it. So good name, good brand, because as long as you
Mhm.
stick to it, then it works.
Oh, I can guarantee you we're going to stick to it, and we're going to stick to the brand and the messaging, and like Maxime says, we're not going to we're going to stick to our convictions,
Mhm. That's awesome.
and that's what we've been doing.
Now, I have a few questions here from one of my viewers named John. He always has really, really good questions. So here we go. What steps will the PPC party take to ensure a more transparent candidate nominee process this time? Have there been any changes since the last federal election made in that respect? So I guess what he's obviously stating there is what is your process and is it a transparent process? For example, could we see you have three candidates and they're vying for the position? There might be a debate. Here they are. Like, are you guys doing any of that?
Absolutely, I think that with the exception of specific areas where we have contracted candidates, but even in a contracted candidate area, we can still have a nomination process.
Mhm.
I think the nomination process is a healthy way for people to have a voice to be heard, and it puts the candidates front and center. But in order to get to that step, there's another process that we need to follow, and that's the vetting
Mhm.
process. And what we're doing now is we're interviewing candidates, and I'll be interviewing them, or associations will be interviewing them, and so we're going to ensure that that transparency or that openness is more obvious.
And that leads to John's next question, which was are there past PPC candidates who have been quietly gifted their current riding? So you just mentioned contracted candidates. So this might be along those lines. John's trying to get that.
I'm quietly gifted.
Well, quietly gifted, I
Um,
think he's using that term to maybe say, like, did you just give it to somebody? And I don't think that's the case, but you've selected people and you've contracted them if you really like them, right?
well, part of the contract is that our contracted candidates have to be that face in the community. That's the whole purpose behind it. So they have to be willing to do the work. They have to be part of the association. They have to attend meetings. They have to sell, a certain amount of memberships, a certain amount of swag based off of their current demographics. So it's not that they're actually just being given this. You have to prove that you're willing to do the work. And if you're not willing to do the work, then the association has the ability to say, you know what, they're not doing the work.
Hmm.
Make a recommendation to headquarters, and then unfortunately, that's where I have to step in and start talking to the candidate, going, okay, what's going on? Because there's circumstances where, people have things going on in their lives. We all do that,
Hmm.
they can't change what's going on. We've had a number of candidates that have recognized they were contracted candidates that, what, because of life, I can't stay committed to what's going on, and so I withdraw that contract. And
Okay.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you want to lock people in as soon as you can for the commitment side of things, and then for the building of the riding, getting them out there. Because there's
That's
also
right.
maybe not necessarily a direct monetary investment from you guys in each candidate, but there certainly is an investment by the PPC into every single candidate. So you want to make sure you do a good investment.
Well, we talked about it earlier, the amount of time that I'm spending, and you said the training, the door knocking, all
Hmm.
of these things. It takes time to teach people this, and if you're going to be invested into being a candidate, then there's a few things you should be investing in yourself, investing in your association, even monetarily. You should be investing in yourself because that's only going to benefit you when you go to run.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of different things that need to happen, and it what it does is shows if you're committed, then there shouldn't be a problem.
Absolutely, and on paper it sounds good, but this is where you need to sit down, have a conversation, and work out
That's
the
right.
the differences on an individual level as well. And then John had another good question here. If there is a new transparency to the PPC candidate nomination process, which you did touch on, it appears the party still reserves a rejection clause to any candidate nominee without explanation to the applicant. Well, first of all, of course, a party should be able to reject anybody they want to, but I guess what he's getting at here is a transparency on the explanation. So if you do reject somebody, are you telling them why? Are you giving them an opportunity to maybe come back after? Are you giving them at least some guidance on why they didn't make the cut this time around?
You know what, I would like to believe that that's happening. I know whenever I talk with a candidate, um, even previous candidates, I'm always very open and honest, and I try to get answers for people. Sometimes I can get answers, sometimes I can't, but I believe everybody deserves that respect. And you know, I can't get. I honestly, I can't give an answer for what headquarters does or doesn't do. I
Hmm.
know what I would do,
Yeah.
and I know that I would have that discussion with that candidate. I don't care where they are across the country. I'll have that discussion with them, and be that transparent and open dialogue that
Hmm.
they're looking for, to so hopefully that they can come back and be a better candidate, or they understand why. At the very least, we need to, help people understand why. So I'm of the understanding that that does happen, but you got to remember there's 338 candidates, and we have a very, very small team at headquarters. So
That's true.
sometimes I'm sure that can be missed sometimes.
And I'm sure even in the big parties that could be missed too. It's not an indicator of a small party. It's just an indicator of any party, how they handle rejections.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But you got to look at parties like the Conservative Party or the Liberal Party. They've got, 75, $80 million. They've got a huge headquarters team,
Hmm.
and they have the ability to have that communication, where we don't have the hundreds of millions of dollars, or even 75 million. Heck, I don't even think we have $10 million, and we don't have a huge headquarters team. I think we've got 4 or 5 people,
Hmm.
and they're busy, they're overwhelmed, and this is where the lieutenant's role comes into play, where I can have that communication with candidates, previous candidates, new candidates, and hopefully get answers that they're looking for.
And then John jumped onto your contracted candidate. So if there's a contracted candidate, is there any need for a local candidate nomination process? It seems rather redundant. John, I think you touched on that. Even if there is a contracted candidate, there could still be a process for nomination. Is that correct?
Well,
Or
typically,
is it
so if you look
touchy?
right now, well, the thing is, if you look right now, the application process, if you went online right now, I'll use my riding as an example. I'm a contracted candidate in my riding, so it
Mhm.
wouldn't appear on the national website as a spot that's available or open for a candidacy, right?
Okay.
it just wouldn't appear. Now, as a contracted candidate, I have the ability to say, you know what, I'm open to having that nomination process or what
Okay.
have you, but I'm also the one putting all the work into the riding, and quite honestly, if I'm doing my job, excuse me, if I'm doing my job properly, then I don't know that I would want to have that.
No, fair enough. And if you put in the work, like that's why I was, very
Yeah,
territorial about Yellowhead and Maxime coming to take it. So I totally get it. Like if you're going to put the work and make the commitments, you want
yeah.
to maintain those commitments, not being replaced. So it's kind of tough to go around, shake a bunch of hands, and say I'm going to represent you, and then they get to watch you leave. That's not what anybody wants, and that wouldn't help the party either.
Well, I know I put a lot of work into my riding, so
Yeah. Now let's go ahead and talk
well, I
quickly.
put a lot of work into Western.
Yeah, because we're running
Yeah.
out of time here. So you're running in Calgary. Is that also on June 19th as well? That by election?
No, it's not. They actually haven't announced that
Right,
one yet.
right.
So the latest that they can call that one is July 2nd.
Okay,
So we might be running it into the summer here.
okay.
Um,
Well, that's good news.
ideally,
Go on. Ideally,
well, I can put a lot of time into it, right?
yeah.
So right now, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for volunteers. I need people to help come and knock on doors with me. Um, I know everybody typically asks for a lot of money and donations,
Hmm.
and I want to get out into the community. I want people. I want to meet with the people, and I want to start knocking on doors. So that's what I'm looking for. Um, but in a perfect situation coming up this summer, Maxime will win
Right.
his Portage Liscar riding, and he'll come to Calgary, and
Support you.
together we will support me
That's
exactly,
so.
and maybe we'll get two people.
So all hands on deck for June 19th in Manitoba. All
That's
attention,
right.
all focus is there, uh, and that could be a very interesting fork in the road for Canadian politics and how that one turns out. So we're very excited to see that one.
Historical.
I think so. I think so.
It's yeah, it's historical. The people of Portage Liscar have an opportunity here that only people in by-elections will get, in that it really and truly is your voice, your choice.
Yes, that's exciting.
You don't have, there's no concern about splitting of the vote, because it doesn't matter. Today, Justin Trudeau is still prime minister. After June 19th in Portage Liscar, on June 20th, Justin Trudeau will still be the prime minister. It's
Mhm.
not going to change anything. What will change is whether or not you want to have a loud and strong voice for your family and for your community.
And,
That's what matters.
and then on that note, strengthening communities. This is a big push for you. I know that personally, that the PPC is
Hmm.
absolutely working at strengthening communities because that's where a lot of the damage has been over the last, well, at least 3 years, but even longer than that. What is your approach there in Calgary to go and strengthen communities? Are you getting out there meeting people? You're having town halls at all? Are you following the problems locally and you're reaching out to people?
I'm doing all of that. My family still lives in Calgary, so I'm still very, very much aware of what's going on in the city and in the communities. But if we want, we truly want to reduce crime, if we truly want to address mental health and addiction,
Hmm.
if we want to get to the root causes of all of these problems, then we need to start getting back to family and community.
Yes.
Because once we get back to family and community, then everything else we can address and fix. Getting back to family and community will reduce crime.
Hmm.
Getting, addressing mental health and addiction will help families and communities grow and prosper. And I'm not just saying this based off of, oh, this is a talking point. I worked in federal corrections. I
Right.
worked with gangs. I worked with criminals. I understand all of that, and I've talked to them. My family is, I've got probably 35 years within my own family of mental health and addiction nurses. So I understand all of that. And
Hmm.
so when we have these discussions, and we really want to help fix our communities and our families, we need to get back to that. We've been pushed away from family and community. Uh, I believe on purpose,
Hmm.
but now if we really want to address those issues and strengthen our communities, we need to get back to that.
Well, on that note, Kelly, thank you very much. We are rooting for your push in Calgary. Let us know when that writ drops. Let us know when that's going to happen. We'll have you back on the show and we'll talk about your candidacy specifically because I think it's another important election for Alberta. We just had one, and this would be another one. This by-election in Calgary would be an important one. So, Kelly, thank you very much for your time this morning, and good luck with everything. And if there's anything I can do for you, go ahead and reach out.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And yes, if anybody wants to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at kelly@peoplespartyofcanada.ca. You can go to the People's Party of Canada website to learn about our policy platforms. And you can reach out to me as well, or you can find me for my campaign at ppcwest.com.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And we'll put all of that into our description as well, so everybody can get it in the description.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say goodbye. Well, folks, that's Kelly. He made it. He was here. He was alert. He was happy. He had information. He shied away from 0 questions, and he absolutely gave us an update. Ever since they added the lieutenants to the PPC party, you can see that strategically, infrastructure-wise, and even on the platform support for the candidates has changed. That's exciting to hear. That really is exciting to hear. And I am excited that Maxime may have found a place to live. If he can go ahead and win that election, that would be a big day for Canada, a really big day for Manitoba, and a huge day for the party, because that eliminates the question of, well, you don't have anybody that can win. Yes, they can. Yes, the PPC can win. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Hopefully, yeah, and please subscribe now. Thank you, Ali. Put some comments below. If you have other questions we didn't get to, make sure you put it in the comments. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Kelly, and we'll get the answers to you. And if you're thinking of running like Stunt, don't hold back. Don't hold back. If it crossed your mind for a second, I want to make change, and I want to get into the machine, and I want to be one of the cogs that can make things happen, do it. Apply. You will find out quickly whether or not you've got what it takes, and whether or not you can get elected. All right. So it sounds like there's a lot of support in the party for candidates now, and it's got me thinking. So thank you all very much. John, Ellen, Padge, we even had Stunt today. Tammy was here. I didn't get through all the chats, but I grabbed all the questions that I saw pop up. So if I missed any of your questions, I'm so sorry. But again, we can follow up next time with Kelly again. So on that note, everybody, let me go ahead and get my outro ready and remind you, God bless.